Welcome to the Cloud Pod, where the forecast is always cloudy. We talk weekly about all things AWS, GCP, and Azure. We are your hosts,
Justin,
Jonathan,
Ryan,
and Matthew.
Before we get into this week's news, we want to take a minute to tell you about We Are Developers World Congress, which is finally making its way to North America this September. If you spent any time in the European tech scene, you probably already know the team behind it. They've been running World Congress in Berlin for over a decade, and it's a big deal over there, pulling in more than 15,000 developers every year. Our friend Cote from Software Defined Talk is actually speaking at the Berlin event this July, and from what we've seen, these are the people who know how to put on a good developer conference. This September 23rd through 25th, they're bringing it stateside to San Jose. Organisers are expecting more than 10,000 developers with over 500 speakers across 18 different content tracks covering the entire stack, including cloud, DevOps, AI, security, software architecture, data engineering, front-end, and developer experience. If you've got a team, everyone's going to find a full schedule. It's not just sit and listen sessions. There are keynotes, workshops, masterclasses, and hands-on labs, the kind of stuff you can take back home and work on Monday. There's an impressive list of speakers, including names from Datadog, Honeycomb, Sentry, Google, LinkedIn, Stack Overflow, Netflix, Microsoft, and Stripe, plus Kelsey Hightower, Oliver Pommel, Christine Yen, Scott Hanselman, and Angie Jones. Head over to wearedevelopers.us to grab your ticket and use code DEVPOD26 for 15% off. That stacks with their group rates if you're bringing 4 or more people, and honestly, at that price, you should probably bring the whole team.
Episode 351, recorded for April 14th, 2026. I am the one spending all your AI money. Good evening, Matt and Ryan. How are you doing?
Good, how are you?
doing good, feeling rested.
Yeah, you went on vacation to beautiful, warm tropical places. Why it poured down rain here in the Bay, so you took the perfect time to go.
Yeah, I did thread the needle there because it was I was in between 2 storms in Hawaii, and then came back here, and now it's sunny again. So
Yeah, perfect. I think it was rain this weekend, but I'm going to Vegas, so it doesn't really matter to me.
Yeah.
I don't think.
You're inside the entire time.
That's true. Just inside a conference room. That's all I see. At least at the Mandalay Bay, you walk by that big wave pool they have, and so it's like, oh, that looks so nice and peaceful out there while I'm dealing with bajillions of people trying to crush into conference rooms. Although at least the last couple of years, the executive room where you have social executive privileges is downstairs in the basement, which is the best place to put executives. Honestly, I don't know where else they put us. So I kind of missed out on a little bit of the beachfront because I had to drop down this little escalator to go down there. So I missed some of that, but it's all right. Well, last week while you're out, Ryan, Anthropic shocked the world with Mythos, which apparently is a new, very expensive AI model that can find vulnerabilities and attack them. And so one of the big items of that was that they tested it against things like FreeBSD, and they found a bug that they said had been there for 25 years, which is true. It was there. But even last week, I think we were a little bit skeptical about how great this model is because Anthropic, they're a bit overhypey on the marketing. So there was a lot of talk, a lot of chat. And so now the reality has come to bear. And so Isle probably had the best article I saw where they basically, looked at Mythos and Project Glasswing and then put it to its paces, and basically using inexpensive open weight models, they were able to replicate basically all the vulnerability work Anthropic did and attributed to Mythos. Where they tested 8 models, all detected the flagship FreeBSD NFS buffer overflow, including a 3.6 billion parameter model. They did notice that one was pretty legit. So it's not completely bullshit. It's just partially, which is fun. Kind of what I expected to have happen is, it'll be really impressive and really cool, and it can do some really cool things, but it may be not as great as Anthropic made it out to be, which is basically what they try and said, essentially. So that it is great. It does do a lot of things. It is very expensive. Be careful. Almost 6x the cost of Opus, which is already really expensive.
whoa,
But definitely, if you are in the security space and you want to have it poke holes at your app, it uses really complicated patterns to basically figure out different attack vectors and can actually link different vulnerabilities together to actually exploit your thing. So I assume red teams will use this a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I assume others as well. But is it the end all be all panacea that's going to end all software, as basically they were kind of implying, which is why they kept it restricted to such a few number of companies and via the API. I think the reality is that because it's so heavy on the GPUs that if they release it to everybody, they don't have enough capacity.
Right.
So
the oceans would immediately raise, and
if you use it for targeted use cases, it will make sense. So if you have part of your app that's unauthenticated, that's general information, or you have anything specific that's deployed to end users' devices or anything like that, I could see it making sense to like run this more on a recurring basis. But to me, this is more like let's target specific areas than let's run our entire app through it and see what vulnerabilities pull.
It'd be interesting to like sort of add this to, if you've got any kind of like attestation, or framework that you're sort of signing off on controls. It'd be interesting to have this sort of be part of that, or just an annual review, right? Like, I like that, these types of things are great because it comes up with things that maybe I didn't come up with. And, now I haven't worked on a red team. So like I know that my methods are less sophisticated than what I've seen. And, but having a team that you staff permanently is expensive. So I think it's a cool tool.
But I've used basic models as well to define security vulnerabilities in my code already. So I mean, like, there's definitely value, and so the fact that this is that much better at reasoning and much better to actually make it more complicated things, I think it's valuable. Which again, I think it's to your point, it's red team level, someone who really knows how to like guide a model. Which is again, I think why it's limited to certain partners. It was interesting. Cloudflare, who was not one of the launch partners, this launched on day of recording, so it wasn't a lot of time to play or to look into this, but. Cloudflare stock went down like 5% because they weren't included in the list of security vendors who were included in the limited access to it, which was so silly because like the market is just reacting to this. I'm like, but it's available via the API, and Cloudflare can access the API just like everybody else. So just like they're not a launch partner doesn't mean anything.
But, I feel like the market is very
the market is
twitchy
just
right
crazy.
Now. Yeah.
Basically anything that's a threat to potential valuation just kills you right now, no matter what you do.
Well, and then it'll recover a week later when everyone forgets. Like it seems crazy to me.
Well, I mean, they are, there's a war going on. There are other distractions. So it's hard to keep in memory. And apparently there's a lot of ADHD in investors. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, Amazon this week had a interview with basically Andy Jassy, and Matt Garman was involved, etc. But basically they've invested $8 billion in Anthropic and $50 billion in OpenAI, creating a situation where it holds significant financial stakes in two directly competing AI model companies. And so there was a question was, basically, is this a conflict of interest for you to own so much in two different companies as well as your own Nova models? And AWS CEO Matt Garman frames this as consistent with Amazon's longstanding practice of partnering with companies it also competes against, citing Oracle selling its database services on AWS as an established precedent. I mean, that's a pretty new precedent. That's not the one I would have chose. The dual investment was partly driven by competitive necessity. So
Oracle's been on RDS for as long as I've been using RDS. So
but originally it was not a partnership. It was we screwed you in the licensing negotiation because you didn't know what we were going to do with it.
Correct. But that's what they're referencing. Screwing somebody over.
I thought they were referencing the current new service, which is Oracle Cloud on AWS. It's interesting too because there's also, and we didn't cover this week because it wasn't worth talking about its own, but OpenAI basically said getting a partnership with AWS has actually been way better for them than the partnership with Azure, and helped open the door to them to a bunch of new enterprise clients. And I'm like, yeah, because the power of the Amazon marketplace is pretty strong.
Shocking. So, utterly shocked.
Not shocked at all. Well, next week is Google Next in Las Vegas, and it came upon all of us very quickly. So some of us have done research and some of us have not. But we are going to do our annual prediction game here where we try to see if we are as good as Google product management and things that we think will be announced. And I believe, our typical rule fashion, this is a draft style. So for the thing, Bolt drew numbers for all of us. And I won, Ryan was second, and Matt was third. And Jonathan was fourth, but Jonathan's not here. So he gets nothing.
Hey, Ryan, did you ever audit Bolt code to make sure that Justin didn't make it so he's the first one every time?
When it picked me first, I knew you guys were going to say that.
Yeah.
A
little sus.
I mean, if it happens next time, you definitely should call me out. But it is purely a randomizer. It's very clear with it that it can't have preferences. So anyways, I'm the first pick for this week's Google Next, which is ironic too because I did the homework, so I'm more prepared than both of you probably are for this. But so my first prediction this week is going to be that Wiz and Google Cloud will announce some new big integration feature on stage. This will be the first big announcement since the acquisition is closed. And so that is my first prediction, is a Wiz Google Cloud partnership or a product offering of some size will be announced.
So not only have I not done the research, so you're stealing my first one.
That was my second one. I will say that. It wasn't my first choice.
Nice. Well done. So that's my first one. So that puts you, Ryan, who now has
Fantastic.
no longer...
I've got one left, and then I have to frantically, find more. Well, hopefully Matt is takes sweet time. I think that they haven't really announced that Gemini 3.1 Pro is general availability. And so I think that they will announce general availability of that model while also teasing the next set of models.
So that was my number one choice. Just saying.
So that was my second choice.
All right, we're doing well here, guys.
You're doing great.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Matt, you are up for your first pick.
Let me just delete my entire list so go from there. I'm going to go with, they're going to talk about more default guardrails in AI in general. So, all the different places they use it, how they're adding the guardrails into Gemini itself, where they add the guardrails, because that's a big, theme. So just general guardrails in AI.
I think Ryan would tell you that he hopes to God because what they have is pretty bad.
Yeah, they're all pretty bad. So,
all right. My next one, I think they're going to announce anti-gravity for enterprise. It's been kind of consumer focused so far. It's not had a lot of, if you wanted to use it in enterprise, they do have like a Google Apps Ultra subscription. And I think it's going to be that plus some major enhancements to Gemini CLI will be the big announcement for the dev side.
Trying to figure out if that steals my next one.
But just put you up for your next one. So
yeah. We'll see. So I'll try it anyway. Since Gemini doesn't really truly have sort of the agentic framework that you see in Claude Code and now with CoWork, and even some of the the code specific tools like Cursor and GitHub Copilot, where you can branch off into multiple agents and complete workflows. I think that Google will announce either Gemini's ability to sort of run those multi-agent workflows.
Yeah, do they have an agent platform today in Vertex?
They have their sort of agent development space.
They have the builder, but they don't really have a runner.
They don't really have there's nothing
Unless
really.
The builder also does the running.
Mm-hmm.
Deploy
even in Gemini Enterprise, you can't do a complex workflow. You can sort of create an agent and publish.
There's an agent, a Vertex AI agent engine that exists.
But that's still development isn't it?
Enables developers to deploy, manage, and scale AI agents in production.
Mm-hmm.
Agent engine handles infrastructure to scale agents in production so you can focus on creating applications. I don't know. I think there will be something in that space. So if you want to make it broad and to say something enhancements with agents, I would be fine with that too.
Okay, yeah, I'll take the broad recommendation.
They're gonna announce 3 new features. Is that too broad?
No, you can do that if you want.
Except for when there's 4, you lose.
Yeah. All right, Matt, you're up for your second. I have a long list. Would you like some?
Google's gonna spend a couple minutes talking about just agentic coding practices and tooling, and really it's gonna be like how developers are leveraging, more agentic coding. I don't want to say philosophies, but processes.
So Ryan's got more on the runtime for apps. You're thinking more on the SDLC. That's how I would segment these you two. Okay. So I say it's very close to Ryan's. So let's see. Let me go through my list here. See where I want to go with my third and final pick. We will go to a new Ironwood will GA and a new inference-based chip.
That's their TPU, correct?
Yes, Ironwood TPU is their custom silicon is like a Trainium or Inferentia. All right, Ryan, what's you up for your third and final?
Trying to think of something that's not AI related, and it's really tricky these days because there's just not a lot talked about.
Yeah, I would say security is probably a strong area.
Yeah, but I do think that's kind of covered with Wiz. I think their focus.
Yeah,
will be there.
I do think we're probably due for a new Axion chip this year. which is their general purpose custom silicone. Yeah, Firebase maybe will have something. Yeah, I don't have anything that's really somewhat AI agentic.
Yeah, it's really
maybe go robotics, because the Gemini robotics API could be out there. It's in developer preview today. It's not in GA yet.
It's so, yeah, I don't know. Like, it's funny. I always think that space is going to die with the cloud providers, and it sort of goes quiet and then goes back every once in a while.
You go into like Google Workspace in some way.
You do something on sovereign.
Yes, I had data sovereignty, but it was like more data sovereignty doesn't seem like a great prediction, which is what I think will actually. But
I had a runner-up of at least, I was going to choose a number, 1, 2, or 3, new regions getting announced, like at least one new region getting announced. But I was going to say that as a runner-up.
They have not traditionally announced new regions, but
that's why it's a runner-up.
Yeah, definitely a runner-up.
Yeah, I was trying to think of like what could they do to transform that.
Does Google have a like Azure Local or Outpost?
Yes, they do.
All right.
Let's see. I'm gonna choose one. The only one I can think of, and by me I mean Claude. I think that they will announce some major VMware interruption based off of Kubernetes.
Like a on-ramp to Kubernetes that gets rid of your VMware clusters?
I was thinking more about there was the play that VMware themselves tried to make a few years ago, which is more of like the sort of, management platform of Kubernetes workloads. But I think this will go the other way, which is you'll have a VMware-like experience, but it'll be based off of, it'll be underpinned by GKE in the storage product.
Okay.
So kind of the inverse of Tanzu.
Yes. Thank you. I couldn't remember the name of it.
I Googled it because it was driving me crazy that I couldn't remember what Tanzu was called.
All right, Matt, you're third and final.
I'm going to go more generic. I'm going to do with what I did last year, thanks to Bolt, which is at least 3 non-AI announcements.
That's bold. 3?
I know,
maybe,
right?
I think one would be a blessing.
Well, Riot did 1, right? Kind of the opposite VMware. I was like, all right, well, if I do 2, it feels I guess they could do 1 and it matches for both of us.
Price is Right rules.
Yeah. I had a few runner-ups if you want to add them.
Yeah, if you want to put them in the article, we'll talk about them here. So I had a few runner-ups. So one was agent-to-agent protocol, probably hit 1.0 this year. They talked about TurboQuant a few weeks ago, and I thought it was sort of interesting timing that they would bring up that they've got this new memory-optimized play for AI models. They said it was research, etc. Is research? I don't know. Maybe not. So I was thinking, they may ship something with TurboQuant, which would be a huge leapfrog potentially in Gemini 4, something like that. And so I think that's a good one.
I had something with Waymo. I feel like there'll be something there. I don't know exactly what, but their whole self-driving car. I feel like I've seen more recently a bunch of stuff in general around self-driving cars, with the taxis and everything. And maybe some sort of integration or just them talking about other ones. And then really just because I like to say nano bananas is, some sort of update to that model, just because it's fun to say.
Nano banana. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. It's just fun to say. I'm not gonna lie.
Gemini robotics. So then I also had Axion Gen 2, which is mentioned. I'm trying to give it to Ryan or you. Either one you took it. Do think Gemini 3.1 Flash will hit GA this time as well. BigQuery AI agents seem like an obvious one to me. Sovereign Cloud AI, because like things at S3SN and their partnerships and some of the other sovereign things, more AI expansion there. The Gemini Robotics API going public preview makes sense to me. In my research, I had Claude give me some more out there things, and they had Google acquires or partners with Hugging Face, which that would be crazy to me. So Hugging Face, free tier Gemini Enterprise for startups, kind of like the AWS Activate program. It was something that Gemini thought might make sense. And then the agent-to-agent payment protocol going live would be a big surprised, I think, this time. It's still pretty early, and we haven't really seen a lot of adoption on that one. So I think that's probably not ready yet, but we'll see.
Yeah. I think monetizing AI is still going through that sort of, finding itself phase where I think, there was the initial, it was too expensive. No one bought it. Now people want it and they're charging more, but people are finding the limits of, tokens and how expensive it could be. So it does make sense that would expand to the agent-to-agent monetization next, but I don't know how long it'll take.
Yeah. I do. When with the Mythos stuff coming out, I thought maybe depending on, because I watched talk about later today, OpenAI actually kind of dropped something to compete with Glasswing. I wonder if there's a Gemini model that's similar that they could drop. And I just don't know if, again, like last week has been kind of out there for a little bit as a rumor. Then, they finally announced it officially. But if they have something at Next, that'd be interesting. So again, that's the one in mind.
Yeah, the other couple I had was more AI integration into my phone because that's really what I need in my life.
And I assume that'll come at
I think they have
build.
the different conference for the Android announcement.
Yeah, that comes at I/O typically, or I/O, whatever it's called.
Yeah, and then the other one I had was there's been some rumors I've read around Boston Dynamics and all the robots and leveraging Gemini more. I've seen a few random articles fly by over the last couple months, but it'd be something interesting to see. That's too specific for an announcement now. I feel like a specific company partnering, which I felt too specific.
I don't know. Their robots still freak me out. Make me nervous.
The
Why?
dog
Because they
one.
literally do
The
like
dog one
backflips?
specifically. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know if I want that smarter.
Yeah, I don't need you to get better. All right. Well, I think that's a pretty good prediction. Our tiebreaker is how many times would they say AI across 3 keynotes? This does not include the partner keynote. This is just the developer one, the Wednesday morning, and here's a Thursday morning keynote, if I recall correctly from my schedule. But whatever the keynotes are, minus the partner one. Because no one cares about the partner keynote. Yeah. So last year, that number was 101. We did look it up in Bolt. Thanks, Bolt. So in reverse order, Matt, you get to pick your number first.
I'm going to go 99.
Nice. Ryan?
Is it going to be more or less this year? I think I'll go a little bit less and trying to give some space, or I'll go 75. I think we're not the only ones that are getting tired of it. They will talk about it, but I think it'll be a little less AI, hopefully.
I mean,
Maybe that's just wishful thinking.
This is spoken by someone who's not looked at the course catalog for next week.
Yeah, no, I have. I know that. Yeah.
I'm gonna go. I don't think it's gonna be crazy more than this last year, but I think it will be more. I'm gonna go 115. I was gonna go Ryan's model, like go like 75, try to hit below, but you took it already. So I'm gonna go over and go 115 and assume it's a little bit more this year because the AI is just that much more prevalent this year than it was last year, shockingly enough. So, all right, well, let's see how we do next week. I think Matt and Jonathan are going to hold down the fort while Ryan and I are there, and we'll report back the following week.
Whoa, putting us on the spot. I see how it is.
That's how it rolls around here. It's called listener accountability, sir.
It's the only accountability we have.
Exactly. All right, AI is how ML makes money this week. First up, Anthropic has launched Claude Managed Agents in public beta, a suite of composable APIs that handle production infrastructure like sandbox code execution, state management, credential handling, and end-to-end tracing so developers can focus on defining tasks and guardrails rather than building back-end systems. The platform includes long-running autonomous sessions, multi-agent coordination in preview, and trusted governance with scope, permissions, and identity management, with internal testing showing up to 10 percentage points improvement in task success over standard prompting loops, unstructured file generation tasks. Pricing is consumption based on standard cloud platform token rates, plus 8 cents per session hour for active runtime, which positions this as a managed alternative to self-hosted agent infrastructure where teams could otherwise spend months to set up before shipping anything to users. Early adopters included Rakuten, which deployed specialized enterprise agents across 5 business functions within a week, and Sentry, which shipped a bug-to-PR pipeline in weeks instead of months by pairing their existing SEER debugging agent with a Claude-powered patching agent. Developers can get started with the Claude console, the new CLI, or by using Claude Code with the built-in Claude API skill. The multi-agent coordination and self-evaluation feature is still gated behind a research preview access request form.
So I don't have to get a fleet of Mac Minis to run all my AI
Nope.
things?
You sure don't.
Yeah. It is this interesting, security debate, which is, having a secure, infrastructure and to run those agentic workflows, but it's a hassle. And, I wonder how many people are just bypassing that and just running it, full access to everything and not sandboxed.
I always use Claude, but when I do, I run it with, dangerously allowed everything to my root system.
Yeah. Auto approve everything.
Yeah.
I saw someone today say, I got burned by, fully dangerous mode today. And I was like, this auto mode is the way to go. Auto mode is a safer choice. OpenAI is reporting enterprises now account for more than 40% of revenue and is projected to reach parity with consumer revenue by end of 2026, with APIs processing over 15 billion tokens per minute and Codex reaching 3 million weekly active users. That's pretty impressive for Codex.
It is, yeah.
OpenAI Frontier is positioned as a company-wide agent deployment and management layer distinct from single product agent implementations, allowing agents to operate across an organization's tools, systems, and data with centralized governance and permissions. A new stateful runtime environment being co-developed with AWS is designed to give agents persistent context and memory across sessions, addressing a core limitation for complex enterprise workflows that span multiple tools and data sources. OpenAI is building towards a unified AI super app that consolidates ChatGPT, Codex, and agentic browsing into a single employee-facing interface, with the stated goal of reducing enterprise rollout friction by leveraging ChatGPT's existing 900 million weekly users who are already familiar with the interface. I mean, I can tell you from experience that super apps are somewhat problematic as well. So permission boundaries become a big problem really quickly.
Yeah, this sounds great. All these AI models are only as good as the data that they have access to. And when you get into the enterprise, you're trying to integrate with all the IT services and other platforms that are used for development or other parts of the business, design tools. There's all kinds of stuff. And it's really tricky to sort of manage that. And so, I've seen two models where it's, you're kind of left to your own devices, setting up your own MCP server or your own local integration somehow, or there's just, if there is a platform, sort of a sparse support of that. So I'm really happy to see this developed, and I'm really, really eager for this type of framework to be more prevalent because it is cool.
Like any of these businesses, things are SSO, things are locked down. So sometimes it's an all or nothing. It's kind of the problem. Or an end user that works around the security controls, which makes Ryan's head explode because he's also working around them, I'm sure. So,
well, how else?
Known you for too many years to know how your brain works.
Exactly.
If you're going to build it, you might as well build it right. And it's just, it's going to take time and effort to do those things. There are a lot of cloud cost management tools out there, but only Archera provides insured commitments. It sounds fancy, but it's really simple. Archera gives you the cost savings of a 1 or 3 year AWS Savings Plan with a commitment as short as 30 days. If you do not use all the cloud resources you've committed to, Archera will literally cover the differences. Other cost management tools may say they offer insured commitments, but remember to ask, will you actually give me my rebate? Archera will. Check out thecloudpod.net/Archera to schedule a demo today.
Well, if you remember about a year ago, Meta released Llama 4 models, and then basically it got real quiet. And that's because they've basically been rebooting their entire AI strategy at Meta. And they're now releasing their first model from its new Meta Superintelligence Lab called Muse Spark, available now at meta.ai with a private API preview open to select users. This is a natively multimodal reasoning model supporting tool use, visual chain of thought, and multi-agent orchestration. A new contemplating mode orchestrates multiple agents reasoning in parallel, achieving 58% on humanities last exam and 38% on frontier science research, positioning it alongside extreme reasoning models from Gemini DeepThink and GPT Pro. Meta claims its new pre-training stack reaches equivalent capabilities with over an order of magnitude less compute than Llama 4 Maverick required, which has direct implications for infrastructure cost and efficiency at scale, including their new Hyperion data center investment. The model uses a multi-agent test time scaling approach that delivers stronger performance at comparable latency versus single-agent extended thinking, and applies token compression via thinking time penalties to optimize reasoning efficiency for serving at scale. Apollo research identified that MuSpark showed the highest rate of evaluation awareness of any model that they tested, frequently identifying scenarios as alignment traps. Meta concluded this was not a blocking concern for release, but acknowledged it warrants further research, and something you should keep in mind if you're going to use these in any production level, that they detect evaluations, which is sort of creepy.
Is this an open model like Llama 4 was?
I wasn't super clear on that, if it is or not.
Because it was always sort of surprising. Mostly because they were the first big company to sort of release their own model, and the fact that they did it open was very different than a lot of the other companies in their space.
It is not an open model. It is a proprietary closed source model.
Yeah, it makes sense.
That makes more sense. I mean, I'm going to be cynical here. From the new Meta Superintelligence Lab division, if I have to go work anywhere, I want to work for the Superintelligence Lab division, because who doesn't want that your job title?
Yeah.
Probably also has the most stock options too, so you definitely want that.
Yeah. And then I've seen it before, and every time I see Humanity's Last Exam, I'm always like, can we really name this something different, guys? Like,
I love that. It's like, I, for one, welcome my new robot overlords. Just own it.
I mean, it is I was just looking at the latest human exam. So it still says Gemini 3.1 Pro and GPT 5.4 and Opus 4.6 are leading on that. So, this new model from Meta I don't even see it at the moment, just glancing at it. But it is interesting. This is one of the main leaderboards that people are using to see which one destroys us first. Thanks.
Yeah. I mean, overall, look, it's impressive. They got a full order of magnitude lower on consumption. Like, that will give them a lot more power in the future. And that's one thing I'm wondering is a lot of these, incremental updates they're doing, I guess Glasswing is, clearly a couple order, much better, but is it just they threw more power at it and gave it more of a resource set? Or is it they actually, redid the way it's done, and Meta going back to kind of the ground level and rebuilding it from the ground up, at least from what I understand this, means that they are able now to take advantage of newer things, newer technologies that might give them an advantage for, a period of time until, the Claude and, the OpenAI and GPT models and all those kind of have to go through that, because there going to have to be some sort of shift between 5.2 and 6, or 4.6 and 5 of Claude.
Yeah, I'm sure. So the thing about what's on Humanity's Last Exam right now is that the last update's from February 20th. So we're just waiting to see when Mythos and this new meta one gets added to it. So that'd be interesting. All right. Anthropic is launching routines in Claude Code as a research preview, letting developers configure automated workflows once with a prompt, repo, and connector, then run them on a schedule via API call or in response to GitHub events without requiring a local machine to be running. 3 trigger types are supported: scheduled cadences, hourly, nightly, or weekly. API triggered endpoints where each routine gets its own URL and auth token, and GitHub webhook events that spin up new sessions per matching PR and continue feeding it updates like comments and CI failures. The cloud-hosted infrastructure removes the need for developers to manage their own cron jobs, MCP servers, or additional tooling, since routines ship with built-in access to repos and connectors. Daily routine limits are tiered by plan. Pro users get 5 per day, max users get 15, and team enterprise users get 25. With additional runs available through extra usage of the same subscription usage rate as interactive sessions. So, I see a bunch of my chores getting automated real quickly. Like, hey, I got, new Dependabot alerts that I need to address. Like, I can now have those run on a weekly basis and I don't have to think about them as much, which would be cool. So
I feel like they announced a very similar feature on Cowork. There was, I know dispatch is not that, but I thought there was a routine based.
There is a loop capability, which is more for inside of Claude Code. So, but this doesn't require you to have Claude Code running for the loop to work. This is the difference.
I see. Okay.
One of the skills they have, which is do a PR, wait 5 minutes, see if Copilot's response, and then give me the feedback to it. And my next, when I get back to work, is going to be setting up a routine that just does this for me and all my things. make sure Copilot is triggered, let it go, and at least have 2 AIs review my AI generated code at that point.
It's fun to make them fight. It's one of
It
my
really
favorite
is.
things.
That's why I enjoy Claude for my day-to-day and Copilot for my PR review.
I have been using more codecs. I can't get onto the Copilot thing. I keep trying, and I don't love the interface via Visual Studio or through GitHub Copilot interface. But I do use Cowork for that sometimes. So I'll pull up Cowork and be like, "Hey, it's time for you to go judge Claude." But I've also used Gemini CLI for that too. But Gemini CLI is garbage. So I'm hoping next week we get a better version of that because it needs some help. But we'll see.
I still don't know how you use Claude Code in VS Code and complain about the interface though, because
I don't use it. I rarely use VS Code anymore. To be honest
okay.
with you, it's mostly CLI.
So you're just doing it in the terminal. That makes sense.
I do it in a terminal inside of VS Code, but now that I think about it, I'll actually use much of VS Code at that point. More like, here's a link to the folder path.
If I'm doing stuff where I'm actually reviewing a code heavily, like the stuff I do for Bolt, I don't typically look at that closely because it's Bolt.
Yeah.
But like stuff that I care about, like for security reasons or things that I need to make sure it's doing things, I typically do at least have Visual Studio linked to my Claude code session in the terminal. That way, as it's doing edits I want to review, it's pulling them up in Visual Studio at the same time, so I can look at it and show me where the changes are it's making. I'm like, I don't like that, or I give that real-time feedback. That's more pair programming, though, I would say, than other times you're doing more agentic things where you're just like, here's what I want you to go do a bunch of things, or my test suite. If it works, we're good to go. If not, let's talk about it.
Yeah. I still don't get good results when I do that. So I'm mostly just doing the pair programming thing and having discussions there.
So my trick to that is try using voice instead of typing, because you probably, and I've actually seen your typing, so I know this. You have a tendency to probably, when you talk, you use a lot more words and you use a lot more descriptive language in it, versus when you write on the prompt, you typically are editing yourself as you're writing. And so the raw thought coming out of like using the voice thing sometimes will help your prompts be more effective with Claude. So if I have something I'm really brainstorming or thinking about as I'm talking it out, I'll typically use voice for that exact reason. And then I'm having more of I'm just spewing raw thoughts to it, and then it can take that raw craziness in my brain and turn that into something really interesting. So something to try is the voice trick.
Yeah, we'll try that, because it is one of those things where every time I feel like I try it and then it doesn't work out, and I know it's because I'm not providing the right amount of detail. And if you leave an ambiguous space for assumptions, that the AI is going to fill it. So.
Yeah, and human nature is very often like, hey, you're used to typing something in Teams to someone else or to a human, and so you're trying to like break it down to the basic parts of it. But if you're just talking to something, all that extra context becomes helpful when you're doing planning. So, OpenAI is launching GPT-5.4-Cyber, a fine-tuned variant of GPT 5.4 specifically designed for cybersecurity work. So weird, a week after Mythos. With reduced refusal boundaries for legitimate defensive tasks and new binary reverse engineering capabilities that let security professionals analyze compiled software without source code access. The Trusted Access for Cyber program is expanding from a limited pilot to thousands of individual vendor verified defenders and hundreds of teams with tiered access levels based on identity verification through chatgpt.com/cyber for individuals and a separate enterprise request process for an organization. Codex Security, which has been in preview, has contributed to fixing over 3,000 critical and high severity vulnerabilities across the ecosystem. And OpenAI is positioning it as a shift from periodic security audits to continuous automated vulnerability detection integrated into your workflow. And the rate that things are breaking and coming out from all of the different NPM and everything else, you should definitely have continuous vulnerability detection.
Yeah. Yep.
Yes, please.
Yeah, there's too much, and I feel like we're just at the beginning of that iceberg for supply chain attacks. I think it's still there's a lot to be done there to secure those, and I think there's too many avenues. And I do like, the idea of having this continuous and directly into, the developer workflows. Like we've always said, adding to the SLDC for static code analysis and all these things. So this is a great addition to that. It's amazing to me that it can sort of work on compiled binaries, because how cool is that? And then also how scary is that?
It's a little terrifying. I'm not gonna lie.
A little terrifying, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, a security review as part of anything can. I guess I've never thought about using I definitely use different sessions to do security reviews. And I have different personas set up to do it, but I've never thought about using different models, whether it's a different vendor or the same vendor, to do that review. I guess at some level I do, because I use Copilot to analyze Claude code when I do agentic coding, but I've never thought about, specifying it down to a very specific one to do it.
Yeah, I haven't played around with security specific models at all, which seems like a gap that I really need to fill, because that's, like I do analysis using the standard models, and I definitely do the same thing with comparison, but I like the idea that this is the second, major announcement in the space, and that's kind of cool.
But that's because you were on PTO for a week. So Ryan, stop going on PTO.
That's true. These things probably didn't exist 2 weeks ago.
I don't think
that's how fast everything's moving.
Right. And there'll be a new one next week.
Right.
I was just looking at this Codex security. I just found there's a Codex desktop client for Mac. And I was like, wait, what?
Oh, yeah. I didn't know that.
Good to know. I didn't know that existed. And so, okay, cool. But I'll have to play with that. Report back. But, everything is moving so fast. It's just crazy. Even the Gemini CLI has had major updates since last time I looked at it, which I should probably update myself, because I don't want to speak here on the podcast for our listeners. Anthropic is releasing a redesigned Claude Code desktop app built specifically for managing parallel agentic coding sessions, with a new sidebar that lets developers run simultaneous tasks across multiple repos and filter sessions by status, project, or environment. The app introduces a drag-and-drop layout system where developers can arrange the terminal, diff viewer, file editor, and chat in custom grid configurations, reducing the need to switch between external tools during code review and shipping. And this is another thing. I've very rarely used the new Claude Code UI. I know it exists inside the Claude app, again, because I'm just used to the CLI. But again, we're giving you more features, just like the Codex tool that I just saw as well. So there's a new side chat feature. Lets developers ask questions mid-task without polluting the main session context, which they also I know have in the CLI as well. You just type in by the way, and you can ask a question, which is great. And the redesign adds 3D view modes: verbose, normal, and summary, to control how much detail is shown about Claude's tools calls, plus a usage indicator showing both context window and session consumption at a glance, which that's actually really nice, because getting your session consumption in the CLI is kind of a nightmare. And if you're in the middle of a thing, you don't know you're about to run out. The updated app is available now for Pro, Max, Team, and Enterprise Plan users. So check that out.
So this is everything I was just complaining about earlier. This is perfect. This is why, not having this level of tool is why I haven't really adopted Claude Code for my main workflows, because everything that they're announcing here is exactly what I use and GitHub Copilot through.
Well, this was announced today, I think.
Yeah, this came out today.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it came out like a few hours ago, because I saw you drop it in. I got the notification too. I was like, ooh, this is interesting, because I played with it. I played with Claude Code Cloud like once or twice, and even like this week some, where like on my phone I was like, hey, add this feature to this agent that I'm working on for my own personal life. And I had it review and do the pull requests and everything from my phone, which was kind of fun, because I was standing in line at a grocery store, because I'm a crazy person. But this is another way that this integrates in with all that. So it's interesting to see them really start to maneuver more of these things into the Claude Code and get away from VS Code integration.
I think VS Code's kind of a bit of a boat anchor, and it's clunky for a lot of these, where a lot of times you just need to review simple things. You don't need all the headache of the IDE. So it's interesting. I'm curious if there's purpose-built use cases. I'll play this Claude one too. So I have homework to do now. So report back.
Is it a dedicated app, or is it being rolled out into the
it's
the code
inside
work
of Claude?
Okay.
Yeah, it's inside this default Claude. There was like the 3 tabs before, and they completely redid the whole UI.
Yep. Sounds like I need to update.
Sounds like you do.
I swear I update like 4 times a day. There's always new updates.
It is kind of crazy. It's, and then even like, you'll start seeing people complain, and you're like, oh, they changed something. And you go read the release notes, and they're like, oh, they changed the way they're calculating context, or the way they're doing memory, or the way they're doing tool usage. And like there's a reason all those caching issues that cause people to burn through their things a lot faster. So you want to, then I realized I was still burning through tokens really fast, and they had fixed it, and I was 3 versions behind because I hadn't closed the session. So yeah, don't leave your Claude Code alone and unattended for multiple days without quitting it at least once. Because it'll you're missing out on stuff, or potentially you're avoiding things. I did avoid some of that bad caching behavior a little bit too. So
My problem is even the app, when you tell it to update, it only updates like one version. So it closes, reopens, and it's like one more. I'm like, no. Update to latest. Like, I don't need 17 interim steps.
yeah, I don't need you to walk me through this. Actually, I just, for that exact reason, I just re-downloaded the binary to install it, because I was like, I don't think I have the latest version that has all the code stuff. So I now do, which is great. All right. Moving on to AWS, Amazon Bedrock Projects lets organizations attribute AI inference costs to specific workloads by passing a project ID in the API call, which then flows into AWS Cost Explorer and AWS Data Exports for analysis. This addresses a real operational gap for teams doing chargebacks or investigating cost spikes across their multiple AI applications. I can tell you that this is a must-have. So every cloud provider needs to provide this capability. Like, this is a major problem in Vertex. It's a major problem in Bedrock, at least until now. And even I'd say the project level is probably not granular enough. I would need it at IAM identity level. So I appreciate the step in the right direction, but I think there's definitely a need for even more of the space. And I think FinOps is probably going to have to really drive a lot of better behaviors in AI usage, because it's difficult to know what people are doing, what they're charging, how it's being charged to them, and they're just using it. They don't know better. And so they switched over to Opus model, or they switched over to ChatGPT 5.4, and then all of a sudden the bill's going way through the roof and you don't know why. And without being able to give them more real-time insights, it's impossible. So thank you, Amazon, for this. It's appreciated in the right direction. And you could potentially, I guess, get Bedrock projects per user, but there's still lots of opportunities.
They do have cost allocation by user for Bedrock. It was announced.
That's good.
It was announced, I think, a couple of days ago. I think it was just a follow-up story to this one.
Okay, good.
Yeah, Bedrock now supports cost allocation by IAM user role. I'll drop the link in the show notes, just as a follow-up to that one. I was like, I swear I saw that.
Yeah, because I hadn't seen that, and I looked for it before, so I'm glad to see they've got that too. That's not old either, so that just came too. April 9th.
I mean, it'd be nice if they made this like an SCP that you can force, because
Yes, that'd be great.
that's probably will be the follow-up, I feel like, to this, which is enforcing it, because otherwise, no one's ever going to do it.
Well, can't you enforce budgets in AWS now?
Yes, you can, but again, it's the challenge of you're forcing budget at the at the overall
Account
service
level.
level typically, or at the account level, not at the individual
Not at the user.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can do all kinds of warnings, you do things, but the granularity and the need for the stuff is going to become a bigger deal, because, the truth of the matter is that it's really going to cost, there's some quote from NVIDIA, I think, was like, your $500,000 software engineer is going to require $250,000 in tokens.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
And I was
If they're not
like,
burning
yeah, if they're not burning that many tokens, they're not doing your job. And
the job, and I was like, whoa, yeah, I saw that quote.
I don't know if I buy that. Just to be clear, and he's the man who wants to sell you a lot of NVIDIA hardware that is cheaper than running these inference models on cloud. But if that's true, then you're gonna need to be able to have this granularity for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I know that I definitely burn through tokens quite a bit, and especially at the day job, like, you're being pushed for more productivity using AI. They're actively monitoring metrics, and it's one of those things where you do different things and bigger things, and it's really easy to burn through that. And if there's not a quota or not, some sort of limit, you don't really know. But I also hate the enforcement, because I'm constantly out of tokens. So don't do that.
Well, you need that. So this is one of the areas where you having recently started using a Teams plan for Claude. I'm very disappointed in how little enterprise controls do exist in these tools. Like, ability to have per person budget approval flows, or per organization budget approval flows for overages, tracking that data. What are they, again, like, what models are they using? Like, it's not as granular as you would expect it to be. And like, I was telling someone earlier today, I was like, they really need a good RBAC model.
Yeah.
Least privilege, because like someone wanted access to usage data. Like, well, to have usage data, you have to be an owner of the org. I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Why would you have to be an owner? That should be something an admin can get, or I should be able to create a custom role. It says, hey, I'm an engineering manager, and I want to be able to see for my org these, their usage.
Yeah.
That would make sense. So.
Yeah, they're really not enterprise ready. Like, nothing is. Right?
None of these tools
I haven't played around with the OpenAI version, but yeah.
Well, and if you look at like Claude, like, they have a lot of integrations into WorkOS as their back office. to do that kind of stuff, to set up SSO and to track usage. And so part of his limitation that they've adopted a third party who isn't purpose built for what they're trying to solve. And so they're kind of beholden to what the platform offers to them. And that platform is probably trying to, move as quickly as possible to meet their demands. So it's a double-edged sword all the way down. Amazon Bedrock Agent Core Runtime now supports stateful MCP servers, enabling bidirectional communication between MCP servers and clients. The key change is a single flag stateless _HTTP equals false, which provisions a dedicated micro VM per user session lasting up to 8 hours. 3 new client capabilities are now available: elicitation for pausing tool execution to collect user input mid-workflow, sampling for delegating LLM generation back to the client without the server needing to own some model credentials, and progress notifications for streaming real-time status updates during long-running operations. The sampling capability is particularly notable for enterprises use cases because it allows MCP servers to leverage the client's connected LLM without holding API keys or model credentials directly, keeping model access control on the client side. Each stateful session gets CPU, memory, and file system isolation via the micro VM, session tracking through an MCP session ID header. Sessions expire after 15 minutes of activity or maximum of 8 hours, after which clients must reinitialize the connection. This can be dangerous. So definitely this one, if you're going to implement stateful MCPs, I would make sure you have a very good security model for them.
Yeah. No, it's such a weird interaction model. Like on one hand, I really do like this because it's such a huge limitation, not being able to sort of have something that's executing against MCP without it just being stood up every time. But on the other hand, it's like, it's really easy to get into and what an attack vector.
I'm thinking about how, taking us the other direction. Think about the infrastructure that's built by AWS over the last 10 years with the Nitro cards and everything else. And, kind of think of like Lambdas and whatnot. And I feel like this is like a way for them to essentially take a lot of what they built and leverage it in other ways now. So they're able to leverage the Nitro cards to spin up a quick VM or a quick container and, or whatever it is behind the scenes in this case, and really be able to build it and put it out there very quickly for a person and tear it down or not tear it down in this case. It's without a lot of the work that's been happening over the last 10 years at that infrastructure level of the Nitro cards, the quickly loading of VMs, getting rid of all that cold start issues that existed and everything. I don't think we would be where we were today.
No, it wouldn't be possible. I mean, this is definitely built on top of Firework. There's no doubt about it in my mind.
That one, sorry, that's what I couldn't remember when I kept saying Nitro cards.
But Nitro is a key part of Firework, so it makes sense. Yeah. But yeah, micro VM was the tell for me on that. I was like, they're using micro VMs, they're using Firework to do this. They're giving you the managed service, which makes sense. It's very similar to Lambda, and so they're giving you that capability. I can see the value of a stateful MCP for certain, things that, like non-security sensitive content, like knowledge bases and different things where you want to be able to make that available and something, you don't always have to go rebuild the cache of every time or something like that. So I think there's some use cases that do make sense to me for this. I worry about anytime you introduce state into something like this that didn't have state previously, that people all of a sudden start doing things that they shouldn't really do just because they can. It's like, S3 Fuse, like, yes, just because you can access S3 via an API doesn't mean you should. And so that's, one of those, the devil's in the details.
Yeah. Especially since you don't really have a lot of visibility into what is in that state.
Right. Oh, then, what's the MCP, who owned it, where did it come from? Does it have malicious code in it? Does it have access to APIs you don't expect? Like, there's so many risks. So again, it's careful. Great power comes great responsibility. AWS Agent Registry is part of Amazon Bedrock Agent Core, now in preview, as a centralized catalog for discovering and governing AI agents, tools, MCP servers, and custom resources within an org, helping teams avoid rebuilding capabilities that already exist. The registry supports URL-based discovery that automatically pulls metadata like tool schemas from live agent endpoints, plus an approval workflow so admins can gate what becomes discoverable, with Cloud Trail providing full audit trails for compliance. Developers can search registry using natural language, semantic search, or keyword search, and can access it via the console, CLI, SDK, or via their IDE. Preview is available in 5 regions, most of the big ones. And for organizations running multiple AI agents projects across teams, this addresses a practical governance gap. So as long as these aren't public agents that I can now just go access and run like NPM agents or NPM code, I'm okay with this. If it's for my internal org, I think it's great.
Yeah, it's funny because I don't really think about, Bedrock Agent Core for enterprise, but maybe it would allow that, maybe in a sideways kind of way.
And that's where I see the most. I mean, the problem is you and I come from a SaaS background, so we always think everything from the SaaS context, but from an enterprise context, right? Like your customer support people and being able to have agents that handle incoming tickets and doing triage of those, and then being able to create tickets automatically to engineering or defects, respond back to customers for refund requests and shipping notification, like all these things that you have people doing toil work on that these agents can do. That's where I see these things coming into play, but I do have to switch my context from SaaS to enterprise. What are they trying to do with these tools?
Yeah. I mean, it is sort of like from a SaaS perspective, like I see this going the way of microservices. That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
And then having reusable components sort of governed centrally for constructing those services. But yeah.
Yep. It's all new world out there.
Okay.
Kiro CLI is introducing headless mode, allowing developers to run the agentic terminal programmatically via API key and environmental variables, enabling integrations into CI/CD pipelines and build scripts without user interactions. Native Windows support removes the need for workarounds like Windows Subsystem for Linux, getting developers using Kiro agents directly in Windows Terminal for tasks like code-based navigation, bug tracing, and workflow automation. The updated TUI is now generally available after an experimental period, adding a subagent monitoring view accessible via Control-G, real-time task list, and parallel subagent execution that protects parent agent context on complex tasks. I don't use Kiro enough to know if any of this is cool, but it sounds like it's moving more towards what Claude and other tools are doing, and they're all racing to meet what Kiro's doing. So depending on what way you like to do your automated agentic coding, everyone will have a solution for you, either a CLI or a new custom GUI or integration into an IDE. So sounds like you got all three.
When's the last time you heard Windows users getting any love? Like that's
right.
Native Windows support? Like that doesn't happen.
Even in Claude Code, like it still very heavily requires WSL.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Most of these require WSL under the hood because even I feel like Microsoft is leaning that way with a lot of random things too.
Now, I don't know if they're leaning that way. They put it out there because they had to.
Yeah.
People are forcibly, a lot of tools that we use if you're on a Windows box require, let's put it that way.
I mean, they could just, release Windows 12 with, a Linux kernel. Because
think over multiple people's dead body.
I'm sure. I mean, that part that Windows always was most viable is their superior UI. So, underlying parts of Windows are terrible. So, yeah, the Linux kernel plus the Windows UI could be really nice. Just saying. They'll never do it. And our final Amazon story, Amazon is acquiring Globalstar in a deal expected to close next year, gaining its LEO satellite fleet, MSS Spectrum licenses with global authorizations, and direct-to-device technology to expand the Amazon LEO satellite network beyond its current broadband aspirations. Amazon LEO will deploy a next-generation direct-to-device satellite system enabling voice, text, data services on standard mobile phones without specialized hardware, targeting coverage gaps where terrestrial cellular networks cannot reach. Amazon and Apple have signed an agreement for Amazon LEO to power satellite features on iPhone 14 and later, and Apple Watch Ultra 3. So this is basically your SOS capabilities in your phone, which Globalstar has provided, will still continue to operate once Amazon closes this deal. The combined network is designed to support hundreds of millions of endpoints globally with practical applications spanning consumer emergency messaging, enterprise IoT, fleet tracking, disaster response, fallback connectivity, and rural broadband extensions. And I guess we can finally say the conversion from Amazon the bookstore to Amazon the utility are complete.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy. I didn't realize that they had grown this so much that it is, a competitor with Starlink, which is what everyone thinks of when they think about these things. I knew they had, or at least I knew Globalstar.
I mean, they haven't even shipped Leo. They haven't shipped Leo yet. I'm on the wait list because I want to get that for my backup internet at my house or for when I go camping or things like that. But, it hasn't shipped yet. It's supposed to ship later this year, which I'm excited about. But then they're already aspirationally saying, well, we need something big enough to manage all of it and more. And they probably already had a pretty big contract with Globalstar. And so it was one of these questions of like, we could just buy it and now be a carrier for cell phone satellite connectivity. It's an interesting play.
I thought you could get some connectivity through Globalstar before this acquisition.
I think you could.
You could. They
again,
did cell phone. They were more geosynchronous satellites versus Leo and Stargate are all low orbit.
Or like
the
SMS type messaging, right? Like
like you're lost in the woods. You can have
use it for Delorme.
Yeah, I know if one of my old employees had one of those devices because he would go hunting in the backwoods of wherever he lived. And he would had one of those, like it would just pretty much send a ping to his wife saying SOS with the GPS coordinates.
I have one of those.
It's an $11.57 billion acquisition.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was like 30 cents per share or something I saw this morning.
Yep.
Because all this was like today, I think.
That's a pretty, it's the last day or two. A pretty big, attack on Starlink too. Like to, hey, we're not only are we going to announce Leo, which will compete directly with Starlink, but now we're going to get fully vertically integrated. It's interesting play. Well, and then if you can power cell phones as well in the future, which I know Starlink would like to do as well, and that all gets real interesting.
But they already had the ground station and a few other things that they kind of had going.
But the ground station was a partnership with Globalstar anyways.
I didn't realize that.
Oh yeah, it's like because Amazon just built a control layer on top of Globalstar's stuff. That way they could basically provide ground station. Because the reality is Amazon wasn't building their own infrastructure for that. It cost them bajillions of dollars to build the satellite infrastructure. Plus, what satellites are they talking to? They're talking to Globalstar satellites or other competitors of Globalstar. So it doesn't make sense for them to do that, in my opinion. So it's always a partnership.
Apparently, Apple owned 20% of Globalstar, according to Wikipedia.
Yeah, that was an investment they did when they basically invested in the iPhone SOS feature. Because basically, Amazon or Apple's giving it away for free on every iPhone, and so but there's still a cost to deliver the service. And so basically, Apple, by owning part of the company, is subsidizing that piece of it.
So not only so Apple gets a little richer with this acquisition, but iPhones will continue to get more expensive because they will continue to make this a free service.
Well, I mean,
free, quote unquote.
Well, the interesting thing will be is, once they release in 2028 a satellite cell phone service, will Apple devices, people start moving that direction instead, versus Verizon or T-Mobile, et cetera. So that'll be interesting to see.
Yeah. That's a lot of throughput.
Yep. We don't have a lot of GCP news this week because they're, preparing to shock and amaze us all next week. But a couple of things came up. GKE Cloud Storage Fuse profiles are now GA in GKE version 1.351. This automates storage configuration for AI ML workloads by replacing manual tuning with 3 pre-built storage classes: GCS Fuse CSI Training, GCS Fuse CSI Serving, and GCS Fuse CSI Checkpointing. Feature addresses a real operational pain point where customers were leaving performance on the table or experiencing pod out of memory kills due to misconfigured cloud storage settings that previously required navigating dozens of pages of documentation, which if you had ever done Google documentation, is a terrible day in the life. The system dynamically scans your bucket and analyzes node resources, including RAM, SSD, and accelerator type to calculate optimal cache size at deployment time, remove the need to manually account for these variables across different infrastructure configurations.
That's nice, because I think previously you really had to rely on some team managing this centrally if you're going to get that level of customization and tuning. Now it seems like this might be something that individual dev teams would have, a better experience just instead of just, whatever they get out of the box.
Well, if you've been using Gemini to help your kids with their science homework and you really wanted 3D models, Gemini has that for you this week, with the ability to create interactive 3D models and charts directly in chat at gemini.google.com, moving beyond static text and diagrams to functional simulations users can manipulate in real time. This is available by selecting the Pro model and prompting Gemini to show me or help me visualize a concept. The feature supports adjustable parameters like sliders and numeric input, so users can modify variables such as gravity or velocity and immediately see updated results. The rollout is available for standard Gemini app users. Their education workspace accounts are currently excluded. No additional cost is mentioned beyond existing Gemini Pro access. So if you don't have a Pro account, you'll need to get one to use these features.
So this is something that makes me think about actively getting a Gemini Pro account, which I don't have today. Just the amount of stuff that I do with 3D printing and that being able to generate a model that I can then import into a tool and Fusion and tweak it, or maybe it just would generate G-code directly. So this is, I like this, and it's definitely something I can see myself using.
I mean, I can see it used not just for that, but for, people doing housing construction, anything along those lines. My wife and I were talking at one point about redoing the kitchen and trying to visualize it. And I can't visualize, if we remove this wall, what's the space going to look like? So now, if you can before you could do like a 3D picture, but now if you can actually do a 3D model and kind of look at it and walk through it, to me, I think that would help. So I foresee this not just changing, what you're talking about, but if this grows into just general things, when you need a model of things, the gravity effect can be interesting. If you start talking about gaming, because I remember one of my friends told me, she's an architect, and she said they added gravity to a really old game from I don't remember, choose a year, V1 to V2 of the game. The first one didn't have gravity, but the problem was none of the buildings they built in there were structurally sound. All of a sudden they added gravity and all the buildings collapsed on, as soon as they added that feature. So if you can add those types of things, you can really start to see a larger and new design aspect of things.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, so I have Pro, and I just did it, and I created a multi-layer version of the sun, and it shows me the different zones, and I can change different aspects of it. It's pretty cool.
That is cool.
Definitely fun to play with, and I didn't think about the 3D printing aspect though. That's my son has a 3D printer. I'll just see if we can create some 3D models of some stuff. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Google Cloud is automatically enabling an enhanced security command center standard tier for eligible customers at no cost, adding AI protection features, including a unified dashboard that detects unprotected Gemini inference and reports on LLM guardrail violations, with general availability expected by end of 2025 or 2026 for June. The free standard tier now includes more than 44 misconfiguration checks based on the Google Cloud Security Essentials compliance framework, up from the previous count of 21 checks, along with agentless critical vulnerability scanning and graph-driven risk prioritization. Data security posture management has been added to the free tier, allowing teams to discover and visualize data across Vertex, BigQuery, and Cloud Storage, with Compliance Manager included for automated monitoring against the GCSE framework. SEC now surfaces in-context security findings directly inside Cloud Hub, GCE, and GKA dashboards, giving infrastructure admins security insights without switching between tools, which is always great. Bring me the data. Don't make me go to the data.
Yeah. No, this is definitely, I really like this, and especially the free tier aspect of this, is because it is already such a challenge to know where your AI workloads are, and then having the specific configuration checks is great. I do think that the checks themselves, I mean, I played around with the 21. They were a little basic, so it wasn't that great, but I do think it's a great thing to have. And the data scanning is super key, because that's typically been really expensive to run and classify your data and know where your sensitive data is. So
I mean, what, you found Cloud DLP expensive? I don't.
Just a touch.
Really? Why would you say that?
So weird.
Yeah.
I haven't found DLP solutions that didn't cost bajillions of dollars. So it makes sense. Well, if you want to visualize all those data and findings, you would typically use Looker. And if you're looking for Looker Studio, you're going to have to look elsewhere, because now it's named Data Studio, which will not be something I remember ever again after this podcast. Data Studio is positioning itself as a hub for personal data exploration and ad hoc reporting across Google data sources, including BigQuery, Google Sheets, and Google Ads. The platform now serves as a single location for multiple asset types beyond traditional reports, including BigQuery conversational agents and data apps, built-in collab notebooks, reflecting the broader shift towards AI era analytical workflows. Data Studio will coexist with Looker rather than replace it, with Looker remaining the enterprise BI platform focused on governed data and semantic modeling, while Data Studio targets individual and small team use cases. Pricing follows a 2-tier model. The standard Data Studio remains free for individual use, while Data Studio Pro adds AI features, enterprise security, and compliance capabilities at a paid tier purchasable through the Google Cloud Console, which that was one of the big problems with Looker Studio, was that it wasn't really meant for enterprise. So this Data Studio Pro version gives you that capability finally.
So it used to be called Data Studio, so this is renaming it back.
Of course.
Yeah.
Full circle.
That's funny. And I wonder, because there's always been this weird sort of difference between Looker and Looker Studio. And I wonder if this is if they're going to still have the sort of Looker, which is your sort of your big BI engine, versus the Studio, which is the visualization layer. I wonder if they're going to keep that as two separate things, or what they're doing.
Yes, I do think that is what they're doing. They're at least what they say. So,
yeah.
We'll coexist with Looker rather than replace it. So.
Oh, okay. It does, because that's, it's funny. I'm starting to feel like, Google Cloud Pro, and it's kind of embarrassing. This is the service that I remember the history.
Shows how many years you've been on the cloud.
Yeah.
Shows how many years he's been trying to make Looker work for him.
Every
time we think it's going to work.
It's easier than QuickSight. So,
That's not hard to do.
Yeah,
not hard to do.
Exactly.
So. BigQuery Graph is now in preview, bringing native graph analytics into BigQuery using the ISO GQL standard. This lets analysts run multi-hop relationship queries without leaving BigQuery or learning a separate graph database system. The key technical distinction is that graph schemas are created on top of existing relational tables with no data duplication or movement, and users can mix SQL and GQL in the same query, which lowers the barrier of teams already invested in SQL skills. Integration with Spanner Graph is a notable addition, allowing federated queries that combine real-time Spanner data with historical BigQuery data in a single virtual graph. This addresses a common pain point where operational and analytical graph data live in separate systems. I don't get it. The challenge here, I had a very simple mental model of graph data, and now graph data is SQL data, and so that's confusing. But you can just put it on top of SQL data, which is what I thought the whole point of why we couldn't just use SQL to use graph data. And like I said, my brain hurts.
Yeah. I don't get this at all. Like, what query could I possibly write where I would need access to both? I mean, maybe they want to create like a data set that has both types and like separate tables that you can then query independently. Maybe. I have no idea how one would use this. And BigQuery, like, for like graph-like queries that are sort of like not one-off, but like kind of smaller in quick succession, like BigQuery doesn't really like that. It's very limited in terms of like concurrent queries and things you can do. So this is strange.
Interesting. Well, I am going to try to not think about that much more because it's going to hurt my brain.
Yeah.
In a feature that I'm sure is going to make your people cringe just slightly, Google's launching Skills in Chrome, a feature that lets users save custom Gemini prompts and rerun them with a single click using the / or plus button interface, eliminating the need to retype repeated prompts across browsing sessions. Skills can operate across multiple tabs simultaneously, which makes it practical for tasks like comparing product specs or scanning several documents at once without manual prompt repetition. Google is also shipping a pre-built skills library for common workflows like ingredient breakdowns, gift selection, and macro calculations, with options to customize any library skill by editing the underlying prompt. On the privacy and security side, Skills inherit Chrome existing Gemini safeguards, including automated red teaming and confirmation prompts where sensitive actions like sending email or calendar events can occur. Save Skills sync across signed-in Chrome desktop devices, making this more of a persistent personal workflow tool than a one-off browser feature, but is limited to desktop, and there's no mention of separating pricing beyond existing Gemini and Chrome access. What could go wrong? I mean, the red flag, of course, is the word macro.
Well, I'm also going with the sync.
Every macro has always been security-driven.
Yeah.
But the synchronization, how many people do you know that are signed in to your personal email on your work computer and on your home computer? And now, let me go click this button because I'm automatically want to be able to see every this trip I'm flying for, going somewhere. And great, now that synchronizes to your work computer, which does God knows what under the hood in reality. That sounds terrifying. Ryan should be having a panic attack right now.
Yeah.
Where's your brown paper bag?
The syncing is a little separate than having multiple profiles, but
what average consumer, what average employee knows to have multiple profiles?
I think a lot of people have multiple profiles.
And I have multiple
I think
profiles.
I think a lot of people don't use the syncing because the syncing is like all your bookmarks and all that kind of stuff. And so I wonder, but I mean, having that sync to your work computer is already a different problem. Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out whether I like this or not, right? Like, because I can think of some things that are kind of cool, and I'm trying to get around the the silliness of like just executing things without really knowing what's going on. That's usually how security problems
what's
get
wrong
introduced.
with a skill that you've somehow saved on your personal computer at home that was a virus that then gets synchronized to your work account, your work Chrome that's logged into your work space, and then sends all of your personal email from your work account to this hacker's account? What could go wrong with the skill that does that? I just don't know what you're not concerned about.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's the syncing is where like that's already an issue, right? Like that's what that means is you've signed into your browser at work with your personal profile and have enabled syncing for all your personal bookmarks and all those things. And so like it's already going to be a concern there because you can do the same thing with Claude Code or Cowork.
Yeah. This is in your browser, which is just such a JavaScript. Like, here, just open this website that has this bad JavaScript on it that infects your computer. Like, this one makes me leery.
Yeah, you're right. The access at the DOM layer is terrifying. Because that's you get into weird hidden prompts and websites.
I mean, and it says it's going to have prompts for security, for doing safe, secure things, and so it's going to prompt you. So then people are just going to prompt fatigue, or they just like UAC, where they just approve, and no one's actually thinking like, should I be approving this or not?
Right.
So that's definitely a challenge.
Oh.
Yeah, so I like the idea of it. I like the idea of not having to repeat my skills. I have questions.
Yeah.
And if this ends up with work basically saying, look, you can no longer log your personal Google Chrome profile into your browser, that's gonna make a lot of people unhappy. So as Matt said,
I mean, I think that I think corporate ownership of browsers is going to happen.
It's happening already,
and just be it's already happening, but it's going to be table stakes for any organization.
Yeah.
There's
the secure browser
things.
is everywhere.
Too many weird extensions, too many weird things you can do with the browser, and then also just how close it is to the user interface.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely coming.
It's coming there's a bunch of startups doing this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's for security, and before that you just do a man-in-the-middle attack, but with MTLS being so prevalent nowadays, less and less things you could do a man-in-the-middle attack for. So, having a secure browser that they can, your security team can watch what you're doing and see that you're not exfiltrating data, et cetera, et cetera. It's where the world's going either way, whether we like it or not.
Yeah, it's the reality. All right, and let's move on to our one and only Azure story. Bless Azure. Microsoft has released Agent Framework 1.0, merging semantic kernel and AutoGen into a single SDK after maintaining them as incompatible parallel frameworks. AutoGen will now receive only bug fixes and security patches, meaning developers on either framework face meaningful migration work to adopt the new unified tool. The Azure Agent Stack still spans multiple distinct services, including Agent Framework for pro code development, Copilot Studio for low code, Foundry Agent Service as the managed runtime, and the Microsoft 365 Agents SDK for Teams distribution, with each service having its own documentation and deployment model requiring enterprise teams to make platform decisions before writing any agent logic. Agent 365, a governance and compliance control plane for monitoring agents at enterprise scale, reaches general availability on May 1st at $15 per user per month, adding another procurement decision on top of your existing build and runtime layers rather than consolidating them. By comparison, Google Cloud and others, AWS, strands Agent SDK as a thin framework that pairs cleanly with Agent Core as its managed runtime. Both competitors offer a more direct path for local development to production without requiring lateral platform decisions. This article was, sorry, I should have clarified. This is an article bashing Microsoft from Forbes.
Yeah.
Where basically Microsoft's agent stacks are confusing developers with rivals are trying to make it easier. So basically the general feedback is that Azure has made this way too complicated, where everyone else is trying to simplify the code development process to get from development to agent production in a streamlined, simplified method.
So Microsoft make things harder and more confusing? Never.
And then make it worse by trying to simplify? Yeah, no, that sounds like Microsoft. Like parallel frameworks that are incompatible, now it's just going to be incompatible with itself.
And then in a couple of years, it'll just be like Google, where they just renamed it the original name of things. They'll split back into two. It'll get too big and they'll fragment it out and split it into two.
And then they'll make an ultra version and an ultra premium version.
Ultra premium, yeah.
So yeah, makes perfect sense. All right, gentlemen. I think that's it for another fantastic week here in the cloud. We made it.
Woohoo! And predictions. Boy, guys.
And predictions, yeah.
Great. Well, bye everybody.
See ya.
Another week of cloud news wrapped up. Bolt will collect the news. Justin will get the notes. Jonathan will write some code. Ryan will watch the perimeter. And Matt will reluctantly watch Azure. Till next week for AI, Amazon, Google Cloud, and Azure. And hey, maybe even Oracle, who knows? Check out the cloudpod.net for our newsletter. Join our Slack, message us on socials, or leave a review.
That was awesome.
That was fabulous.
Yeah, you're welcome. That was some work I've been working on in the background. So
I love how we get showed all this live.
Yeah. I mean, I did share it with Jonathan in the Slack 2 weeks ago, and you guys weren't around to read it.
Makes sense.
So but Jonathan liked it too. So
very cool.
We won't always air it at the end of our episode, but we do have an after show, so it makes perfect sense today. I mean, the world has watched, hoping that there wasn't anything that went bad with Artemis 2. And, I'm glad to report that the astronauts are safely back on ground. So now we can talk about all the things without jinxing the mission, which is great. And so the first one that came up was basically an article. Where did this come from? This was from Communications of the ACM, basically how NASA built Artemis II fault-tolerant computer, which I found to be a fascinating article. Basically, the Orion capsule ran 8 CPUs in parallel across 4 flight control modules using a fail-silent design where faulty processors drop out rather than transmit bad data. The system can lose 3 of 4 modules within 22 seconds and still operate safely on the remaining module. The architecture enforced strict determinism through time-triggered Ethernet and an RNC 653 scheduler, ensuring all processors see identical inputs and produce identical outputs, which is a notable contrast to modern Agile and DevOps practices, where this level of architectural discipline is increasingly uncommon. NASA uses dissimilar redundancy for the backup system, meaning different hardware, a different operating system, and independently written simplified software, specifically to prevent a common software bug from taking down both primary and backup systems simultaneously. The verification process relies on supercomputer scale fault injection and Monte Carlo stress testing to simulate full mission timelines with catastrophic hardware failures introduced, which offers a practical model for how cloud and industry teams might approach resilience testing at scale. And the broader industry implications that software takes over functions previously handled by mechanical or manual controls, whether in spacecraft, autonomous vehicles, or industrial systems. The engineering patterns developed here around fail-salient design and layered redundancy become increasingly relevant outside of aerospace. And we talked a couple weeks ago about Outlook and the astronauts having the Outlook problems. In that case, Outlook is actually their personal side. The mission control computers are completely separate from those. And so this is just fascinating, architecturally, what it's doing, how it's failing, how each processor is getting its own identical set of instructions and outputs. And if the outputs don't match, they basically kill the chip until they can debug it. And then even the fact that they're writing software for 2 different completely separate systems.
That's
so
wild.
The upgrades can't break it. Like I can't, like how you design a software SDLC for this has got to be absolutely fascinating.
Well, it's not just software, it's the hardware SDLC too of you have 2, I mean, I think maybe I'm wrong, but the way I read it, it was also 2 different processors, which means it's the entire stack up of infrastructure all the way through, of physical hardware all the way through the software. So you're having multiple vendors involved, and people wonder why this stuff's so expensive because they're, was it 250 million miles away from 250,000, whatever the number was, away from home on literally a slingshot around the moon to get back.
Mm-hmm.
I get why they want that level of fault tolerance, because the last thing NASA and the world wants to see is dead astronauts orbiting the Earth in a exponential decay. Like, that's not going to go well either.
Yeah. I mean, that's, I mean, if you look at the technology from like the space shuttle to what we're talking about now in our Artemis, and Artemis is designed to go to Mars long term. So it's got to have even more fault redundancy because it's going to be, subject to a lot more radiation, a lot more, space effects that we typically don't have in our system. So having the system of 8 computers basically handling all of this makes a lot of sense. And I would feel a lot better with my self-driving car if it had at least 2 computers.
Just 2.
Doing this. Because, there's horror stories about, EVs and things, wrecking into things due to bad sensors or bad input data or all kinds of things. They're just normal hardware failures that we tolerate on Earth, but you can't tolerate at space level. So yeah, it's just overall fascinating. And it'd be fun to be a software engineer on a project like this because it's a whole different, it's the same thing like building heart monitors or building health devices. Like you have a higher level of SLA because if you fuck that up, you kill somebody. And in this case, you kill, 3 astronauts or 4 astronauts.
Yeah.
Which would be terrible. And instead of a national moment of pride for America, which we desperately needed in this recent political time, I would have been a national tragedy like some of the other. And I witnessed one shuttle implosion, and so it's a bad scenario when those things happen. And I was very nervous about how things would be handled if that happened. So I'm glad I didn't.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, it's cool. So we'll keep an eye out for some other articles. They had a bunch of technology they took along with them. They had iPhones. They had their personal computer stuff, which had the Outlook problem that we all laughed about a couple weeks ago. And definitely we'll keep an eye on these things as they go through them. But Apollo astronauts had a 1 megahertz computer and 4 kilobytes of erasable memory. And this computer, this is 8 CPUs and who knows how much memory in contrast. So just
probably all of it. Hopefully all of it.
Hopefully. I mean, NASA might not be able to afford memory right now. So hopefully they bought it before the price spikes.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing with most of the. I remember when was it Opportunity? Was it Curiosity or Opportunity?
Mhm.
And what was
Curiosity.
the Mars rover?
Yeah, Curiosity. You get it right.
Was it Curiosity? Well, there was a couple there at once. Yeah, I didn't remember. Anyway, I remember people saying like, "What do you mean this camera is only 2.1 megapixels?" Because at the time they were like 20 or 30, whatever the number was, and it was so much of this stuff was built years ago. Like you just said, stress test, hardened, cosmic rays, radiation, all these things that most people don't think about when you're on Earth. They were built years ago. So luckily, most of the stuff's priority built. But at the same point, it needs to be hardened to such an extreme level that it's going to work. It's not like you can send out a spare, anything to Mars easily. It's not going to be something simple to do.
Yeah. I mean, NASA seems to be changing that, right? Like the James Webb Telescope was developed over the course of 2 decades, right? But the new Roman telescope, which is scheduled to launch later this year, it's only been in development for a couple of years, and the whole like mission ethos was on time and on budget. And so it's kind of an interesting play by NASA. And it does make sense to me considering, the political headwinds I'm sure they're going to face and trying to get all of that settled. But it is kind of fascinating. Makes me want to, get out of SAS.
It was Spirit and Opportunity. It was bothering me. I knew it wasn't right. It was Spirit and Opportunity.
Spirit and Opportunity. Oh.
Yeah, and Curiosity was the other one that was there at the same time.
Okay.
Sorry.
There was 3?
It was bothering me.
Just 2.
I mean, unfortunately, AI might get you out of SAS. I mean, that's
Yeah. No, it's fun. I mean, it is, like you said, it is a very different world when you develop on health applications or space applications or anything in the practical world, which is kind of cool. I have a buddy who works for a health device company, and his funny anecdote was that he had to remove all references because it's in healthcare, and so there can't be any fatal errors anywhere in the code.
well, that's. I mean, that's. I don't.
And I was like,
don't,
"That's awesome."
Yeah, I love this requirement.
Yeah.
It's sort of like when we had to remove master from GitHub and switch to main. And I was like, this makes sense to me. I know why we're doing this, but this is a much better story.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, gentlemen, we'll see you. I'll see you in 2 weeks, Ryan and I.
Yeah.
Matt, good luck with Jonathan next week, and we'll see you after next with hopefully me winning or one of you guys winning. I don't know.
Somebody will win.
I mean, you can win the predictions. I hope I win in Vegas.
That's fine. Yeah, I'd like to win in Vegas too.
Well, I'm not going to Vegas, so I guess I have to root for winning.
All right, later.
Bye.
Bye.